Global relevance in science communication was a workshop that explored how science communicators can practice their work in a globally relevant way, whatever that was, which we had to find out and actually work out within the session. And it had to acknowledge and reflect the efforts of science communicators across the globe, as well as the diverse audiences and institutions that they work with. So the major goal was for science communicators to develop and incorporate a global perspective in their science communication practices, to increase the applicability of science communication to a wider range of global contexts. Now, the important thing was to work out, what is a global perspective? What does it mean to have a global perspective? And these are things that we touched upon in the workshop. The workshop covered global comparisons of SciComm, the field, the research, and the practice, science communication across national borders, prioritizing the local in science communication, and also putting the local into the global through what's known as globalization. And we touched upon what globalization means in the workshop as well. And just to remind you that all of these workshops, all of the resources are open access and open source, free for you to download and adapt in any which way you please or desire. And they are available now, and we'll be posting the links for those shortly. So in the first workshop, we had about 245 people respond to a survey to show us where they were from and to tell us what they expected. But it was striking how many people from across the world joined. And here you can see some of those numbers. We can see that overwhelmingly, we had a huge number of attendants from Nigeria, also from South Africa and Pakistan and India, and also Ghana, Portugal and Mexico, Philippines, Chile, UK, Egypt, Sri Lanka, and many other countries around the world. And this just reveals how much of an interest there is for training in science communication and an awareness of how to make things more globally relevant in what we do. There was also a very vast difference in experience levels. So you can see here on the pie chart that 22% of people had less than a year's experience in science communication, whereas almost a quarter, 23%, had more than 10 years experience. So we had people joining vastly different experience levels, were able to share and learn from each other. Now, one thing that's interesting is, what is science communication? How do you even define it? Not only is the words different in different countries, and we touched upon that in the workshops, but the definitions that people follow or feel applied to science communication is hugely different as well. And we collected some of those here, and I couldn't fit them all in this picture. And the point is just that we're doing so much work in science communication, but we all have slightly different and nuanced versions of what we feel we're doing when we do science communication. Another important thing that we were able to gather is that people have different opportunities and challenges across the world. Some are very unique and some are similar. And I thought it was important for everybody to be able to share what types of opportunities and challenges they had in their part of the world. And so we had this map that is still available for you to add to yourself. So if you want to add to it your own challenges and opportunities in your region, please do. And you download the materials, you'll find there's a link that can take you straight here, and you can just add your own details. And we can see that across the world, there are huge challenges and opportunities. Some are similar. For example, some places do not have good access to funding, that is a common problem. Some places do not have good governmental support. Some have good university degrees and study opportunities, some don't. And so by having a map like this, you can look to see at whether there's another country that is going through the same thing that you are, that you could speak to and get in contact with, that may have been overlooked. And it isn't just about looking in the global north, or to countries that speak English, or to looking at the same research coming from the same countries. It's to broaden our scope, to really get a perspective of what science communication is like from people in other parts of the world. And this is the main reason of thinking about expanding a global perspective and using these other global perspectives to help inform our own practices. So when we think about the globe, everyone has their own particular nuanced issues and challenges. And so I asked what local factors might affect the delivery of a science communication activity. And here you can see many different examples that were given in one of the workshops. But by far, language was seen as an important factor. And different people have written about that in the research. We've also had a piece here by Marcus and Forrest, 2020, and they talk about using multiple languages in science communication is essential if you want to move forward as a globe within science communication and really have a fair science communication landscape. So there was also an exercise where I asked everyone to prioritize and what things might you need to think about if you want to prioritize local issues. And here, hopefully this can be seen by everybody. We got groups from different countries, and there were lots of different groups in the different sessions, and they were just sharing to each other what types of things were relevant in their local region and what was important for their localities. And then I asked them to discuss, see what overlaps they had, with the hope to identify things that they can learn from each other from different parts of the world. So here, for example, you can see there's links where Brazil and IT, and we were looking at 5 different areas. Pillars, so people who support science communication. Places, so settings that it takes place. Producers, so who produces the knowledge and whose knowledge is trusted and looked into and sourced. Practitioners, communicators themselves, and the public. So how do the publics differ? And you can see that there's so many overlaps that were found. And we're talking between USA, Switzerland, and Nigeria. Over here, you can see Brazil, Nigeria, and Guatemala. You can see over here, we've also got a group where we had Jamaica, UK, and Brazil. And so really, it's about looking at what overlaps we have between our countries and learning from each other, not just from the same usual places we see, but from our global colleagues in science communication. So another question I asked is, what is global relevance? So I asked participants, after we'd had a look at some of the different areas of science communication, what could global relevance be? And I found 4 overarching things that we have in common, the different ideas. One was about it being global and being similar. So concerning issues that people have in common across the globe. So for example, climate change. Something that as a globe and COVID that we can see everyone is having regardless of where we are. Other things were about having a neutral aspect to it. So not biased to any particular viewpoint, decentralizing ourselves. So not making ourselves the center of it, but actually looking at science communication from other people's perspectives. But trying to keep it as neutral as possible to see that we're not trying to push across a particular agenda. Also making it localized and specific. So being able to be sensitive and responsive to particular differences around the world. Being globally relevant is recognizing that people have differences as well. And another thing to think about global relevance was that can it be translated and transferable? So the ability to share and to communicate. Now, obviously, in a big world, we all speak different languages. So translation is key. Unfortunately, we all use the English language, but there are many people speaking in Spanish, speaking in French, speaking in many different languages. And in some countries, there are multiple languages just within that country. So the ability to translate science communication materials and information about science in languages that people can relate with is of the utmost importance. So we can learn from and capitalize on a wider resource base and avoid reinventing the wheel. Now, the second module was justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and considered how we can focus on JEDI to develop more inclusive and responsive science communication with and for our varied global communities. Now, again, this was reproduced in 4 different time zones. The goal was to increase the use of equitable, diverse, and inclusive practices within science communication, to promote justice and increase diverse public's access to science. So things we covered in that workshop are, why is JEDI important in science communication? How does diversity factor into it all? What is the importance of inclusive science communication? And how can we use science communication to promote justice in the world? Now, often justice is a topic that, although is used quite a lot, often people don't know exactly how we could target justice. And we weren't able to always touch on it as fully as we'd liked in all of the workshops. But in the final resource and materials, we've given plenty of examples of how you could consider justice in your science communication practices. Now, when we asked about diversity, we just asked in 4 different workshops, we asked people to say, what types of groups do you try and target, do you focus on when you're doing your work and trying to increase inclusivity and doing your EDI work? And you can see that by and large, even in 2 separate groups, the biggest groups were women, low-income children, maybe people of color, LGBTQ. And you can see that women is right smack bang in the center. And this is something that was also found in research, in science communication research, in a study that looked at a map that mapped science communication across the world, but mainly in English-speaking research journals. But over the last 40 years, they found that most research was focused on women, and that in the last 6 or so years, there's been a huge increase in the focus on EDI. But they said that some of the other groups have been overlooked. And so we need to look at who is not being covered in the room, who is not in the room with us, who are we not appealing to, who are marginalized or minorities in the room or minoritized, and who are particularly underserved. And we did look at another paper that you can find in the workbook and the workshops as well, to look at how we can boost inclusiveness of underrepresented groups. So we've done an exercise, which was to look at how to use diversity to be more inclusive. So for this one, it was just thinking about how you could look at changing the practitioner or the producer of the knowledge or the places that you do science communication to focus on these different groups and to allow you to really cater for a diverse world. Now, to cater for a diverse world, you need to show versatility. You have to be versatile in your approaches, in the way you do things. And so by focusing on a particular audience group, we ask practitioners, participants to look at how they could adapt maybe the audiences, places, the practitioners or the producers to suit and match the needs of those audiences, be more inclusive of those audiences. Now, I have to admit that a lot of this work, we have lots of results and lots of information from these workshops, and I'm still trying to go through it all, but it's all available to look at for yourself. When you download the resources, there'll be a link to all of these themselves. Thank you so much. I've been Jon Chase. Please do check out the resources. There is a lot in them. I just have to rush through them as quickly as possible. But if you've got any questions, we'd be happy to take a few questions at the end after we've heard from Jon. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, John. It's really great to hear about your project and all the progress that you've made and the really incredible resource that you've created for people.